The next few poses will be done in a standing position. Please move slowly and at your own pace. Keep the sturdy chair nearby for balance if needed. If you find that I'm talking faster than you are moving, please take your time and do fewer repetitions. Take a nice deep inhale and exhale. Place the feet about hips-width apart and grounded on the floor. Lift the toes and spread them nice and wide, and feel the navel pull gently in towards the spine. Push the toes into the floor and lean forward just a little bit. Feel the muscles that keep you steady. Lean back just a little bit and feel the toes come up. Feel the muscles that keep you steady in this position. Now push all four corners of the feet into the floor. Notice the steadiness of mountain pose. Notice how the steadiness of mountain pose feels. On the next inhale, roll the shoulders towards the ears, back and down so the shoulders are slightly open. Let the palms rest open to the side. Inhale and let the arms rise with the palms facing up. Exhale, bend at the elbows and allow the hands to come down the center line. Sink into the knees just a little. Repeat this again. Inhale, lift the arms with the palms facing up. Allow the hands and face to be relaxed. Continue with this movement at your own pace. Breathe as you move and try to coordinate the breath with the movement. On the next breath, lift the arms back over the head. Fingertips point in, palms face up. Imagine that you have candles in the palms of your hands and you do not want to spill them. Turn the fingertips so they face behind you. The palms remain up. Turn the fingertips to the side and then to the front like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again, towards one another, and then forwards like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again. Let's do this rotation one more time. After the second rotation, allow the hands to cascade down by the side and let them rest. Pause for one slow inhale and exhale. One more breath. Inhale, exhale. This next exercise is excellent for strengthening the spine and gently stretching the muscles of the back, front, and sides. Attempt to make the movement easeful and gentle. We will do these movements with various arm positions. The first arm position is the easiest. Please be sure to stay with the one that feels best for your body. We will demonstrate them all. Take the right hand to the waist and then the left. Roll the shoulders open. And on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale to the center. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale back to the center. Roll the shoulders up, back, and down. And on the next inhale, gently pull the navel towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin and feel a sense of lengthening through the front of the body. On the next exhale, begin to fold gently forward. It does not have to be all the way. Bend the knees slightly. Inhale and rise back to a standing position. Open the left arm to the side. Keep the elbow bent. Leave the right hand on the waist. Inhale. Exhale, lean slightly to the right, and then return back to the center. Bring the left hand down to the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. Exhale and lengthen to the left. Return to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Gently pull the navel in towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward halfway. Inhale back to standing. Open the left arm again. Inhale, and on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale and return back to the center. Place the left hand on the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale and return back to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Lengthen through the front of the body. Slightly pull the shoulder blades together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward. Knees slightly bent. Inhale and return to standing in mountain pose. Pause for a moment. Inhale and exhale. For this warrior sequence, attempt to keep the movements gentle and relaxed. If you notice that you are struggling, move the feet closer together. Lower the arms or make the movement smaller. This pose is great for strengthening the legs, respiration, and opening the shoulders. Step the left foot forward just a few feet. The back foot points in at a 45-degree angle. The front knee bends and the hips face front if possible. Inhale, open the arms and bend at the elbows. On the exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards each other. Inhale, open the arms and push the heart softly forwards. Relax the shoulders. Exhale, bring the arms together. Inhale, open the arms to where you feel comfortable. Exhale, relax the arms inwards. Inhale, open and expand. Exhale, contract. Inhale, exhale. Bring the hands back down by the side, return to mountain pose. One breath here. Inhale, exhale. Step the right foot forward. Take a moment, there's no rush. Ground the back foot into the floor. Bend the front knee. When you are ready, open the arms. Inhale. Exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards one another. Inhale, open the arms. This is a relaxed opening in the chest. Exhale, bring the hands and arms towards one another. Inhale, repeat again, creating spaciousness with a full inhale. Exhale, contract and relax the arms slightly. 2 more times at your own pace. Inhale, open. Exhale, close. Let the hands rest down by the side and return back to mountain pose. Pause here for a few breaths.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the 35th online episode of Peacetime, hosted every Sunday morning by Peacepoint, with myself, Phra Nicholas Thanissaro, live streaming from Dhamma International Meditation Center in Azusa, California. Last time you saw me, we looked at before birth. With the Dhamma talk today, we'll continue with our exploration of living Buddhism with the topic of pursuing perfections. So today's session will run to about 1 hour and 10 minutes, with 25 minutes on the first set of 5 perfections, 20 minutes of meditation, and then finishing up with 25 minutes on the second set of 5 perfections, and of course news updates. As usual, this session I would encourage you to send in any questions you have by emailing me at peacetime.questions@gmail.com so that I can have a shot at answering those questions next time round. This session will examine the form of intense good deeds that will ensure our constant progress in virtue as we negotiate the cycle of existence towards nirvana. We already know about good deeds from our study of merits in the session about doing good that does you good. At that time, we learned that the 10 ways to cultivate merits comprise giving, humility towards those of high virtue, service, transfer of merit to others, rejoicing in the merit of others, self-discipline, meditation, listening to Dharma sermons, giving a discourse on the Dharma, and straightening one's views. As you can see from the slide, goodness at the level of perfections is also consisting of 10 items, but it's not just a difference of content, it is a difference in approach and motivation to do good deeds. Perhaps to give a simple comparison between the degree of good deeds between merits and perfections, you could give the example of giving someone a plate of food. Supposing you wanted to cultivate generosity as a merit, perhaps if you had a hungry friend who came round to your house and you knew that half a plate of food was already quite enough for yourself, you might split your food in half to give the unwanted half to your hungry friend. So you'd be giving away something which is surplus to your needs for the benefit of someone else. This is the characteristic of good deeds on the level of merits. The motivation for goodness at the level of merit is generally rather self-centered. All you really want to do is to store up that energy called merit in your mind, and you might not really care if it ran down later. It's a bit like doing good deeds as a gig worker, whereas accruing perfections regards doing good deeds as part of a career or vocation and has more of a long-term view. Where merit tends to be accumulated haphazardly or at a Buddhist convenience, perfections would be accumulated in reference to the goal of salvation. If you were to give away a plate of food in the context of perfections, even though you might be hungry yourself, but if you saw that this plate of food might be of greater benefit to someone else, you might give them the whole plate. Perfections are intended to uproot bad habits remaining in a person's personality. Although this might be a Herculean task, a pursuer of perfection might work at it over the course of many lifetimes. There are many traditional Buddhists who tend to be rather fatalistic about karma, whose philosophy of life is, well, I'm only here to use up my past karma. On the contrary, the attitude of those at our temple, which is intended to overcome such stoicism, is that we are here on earth to improve on our past and improve our lot in life. In Asia, the technical term for perfections is barami or paramita, which is usually translated as influence or charisma or power. It's usually applied to people who are very influential in society to say that this person has a lot of barami, and that's why they can influence big things to happen in society. Those Stoic Buddhists don't pause to think where influential people got their barami from, as if it were hereditary or it suddenly fell from the sky on their head. But what we're going to look at today is how we can get these barami in the first place, and even how they're connected to the way in which even the Buddha could develop from someone who was an ordinary person with faults like you or me over the course of countless lifetimes to be someone who had the potential for enlightenment. So perfections are really very key as a piece of the jigsaw in understanding how Buddhism works, and are the means by which any person and follow in the footsteps of the Buddha to become enlightened in the future as well. There are a total of 547 previous lifetimes of the Buddha described in the scriptures, which are the backstory for how the Buddha came to be. They are called the Jataka stories. It is the final 10 of these 547 lifetimes before he was able to become the Buddha that are our main source of understanding how the perfections were cultivated. The attitude towards accumulating goodness when it comes to perfections is to struggle directly against the excuses we make up in our own minds to shirk the responsibility to do good deeds. The reason perfections are more challenging is because Buddhists no longer merely want merit to extend the length of time they can spend in heaven at the end of their human life, but they hope for perfections that will liberate them from all defilements. Often in the pursuit of perfections, the aim goes beyond the personal, extending to the wish to liberate all living beings from the cycle of existence. To this end, we will introduce the idea of the Bodhisattva, which means a being pursuing perfections with the intention of becoming a Buddha in the future. Perfections are not separate from merit, but they are like good deeds that have not only been filtered for quality, but distilled by unfavorable circumstances to the point that they become ingrained at such a deep level that even death cannot part the practitioner from them. The sort of effort that identifies perfections is regularity, unconditionality, and pursuit in spite of hardship. They lead Buddhists to a proactive view of life, by which a Buddhist constantly works to improve their destiny, instead of passively accepting their lot in life or being a victim to the destiny inflicted on them by the karma of their past. The 10 perfections we will be looking at comprise generosity, self-discipline, renunciation, wisdom, perseverance, patience, truthfulness, resolution, loving-kindness, and equanimity. The accrual of perfections consists of cultivating good deeds in 10 different categories. All 10 need to be pursued to perfection in order to bring the full benefits to the performer. So let's look at each in turn. The first of the perfections is the perfection of generosity, or Dana Parami. The perfection of generosity means sacrificing of oneself for the benefit of others. It is not simply giving what is excess to one's needs, but the unconditional willingness to share even the things that are necessary to us. The metaphor the Bodhisattva used when pursuing this perfection was that of a cauldron upturned, so that not even a single drop of water remains within. This perfection is exemplified in the Vesantara Jataka, which tells of a prince devoted to giving gifts who falls into disrepute by giving away a precious elephant. He is banished with his family into the forest, where he gives away everything he has left, including his wife and 2 children. Ultimately, all his family come to no harm and are set free, and the story ends well. To give an example of the way this perfection can be put into practice in everyday life, supposing the deed were to give alms to monks coming past the front of your house every day. As a pursuer of perfection, you would give alms, come rain or shine. Even when the monks have to make a distant detour, you would go out especially looking for those monks. Even if you were down to your last crust of bread, you would overcome all those difficulties in order to make sure that you did this act of generosity every day. Other examples might be looking after your family, your children or your parents with unconditional love, or the sort of generosity where you never turn away anyone in need empty-handed, even though you may not give them everything that they ask for, or even donating blood or a kidney to save a relative's life. It also includes not having excessive wants. The importance of this perfection of generosity is because, for as long as your mind is still attached to possessions or wealth, it cannot be brought easily to the center of your body. Practicing the perfection of generosity will help you to overcome the habits of stinginess, greed, and selfishness, since attachments to possessions and wealth would otherwise hold you back from the pathway toward nirvana. The second of the 10 perfections is that of self-discipline, or sila parami. The attitude of someone who pursues the perfection of self-discipline is to avoid the temptation to behave selfishly. The second perfection shares its name with the second major group of merits, which is the perfection of sila, or self-discipline. Normally, we would think of it as just keeping the precepts, but at this level, it may mean, supposing you had the choice whether to put your life on the line or rather than break a precept, like the example I told you previously of the farmer who got wrapped up in a python's death grip and had to make the choice between breaking his precepts and harming the snake. This would be the sort of dilemma where you are dealing with the perfection of self-discipline rather than merely keeping the precepts to get lots of merit. The perfection is exemplified in the Bodhisattva Jataka, where the Bodhisattva takes a snake-like form on holy days to keep 8 precepts in the human world, but is captured by a snake charmer and has to endure brutal beating, humiliation, and incarceration without anger to keep his precepts pure. The metaphor the Bodhisattva used when pursuing this perfection was that of the yak, extricating its tail intact from a thorn bush. Examples of the way this perfection can be put into practice in everyday life are cultivating manners, respecting precepts, just laws, and harmless local customs, and even down to things like picking up litter thrown away by others or closing a door to keep in the heat for others to maintain the harmony of the community. It may mean that a Buddhist would choose to let go of anger and selfishness, even when they are treated badly, for the sake of the integrity of their precepts. The purpose of the perfection of self-discipline is to overcome the conflicts caused by antisocial words and deeds, since shoddy behavior could otherwise be a distraction on the pathway towards nirvana. The third of the 10 perfections is that of renunciation, or nekkhamma parami. Perfection of renunciation for Buddhist lay people means the unconditional ability to cast away one's frivolity, homeliness, and comfort to free up a space in the mind for more valuable treasures in the mind that money cannot buy. This perfection is as exemplified in the Tamiya or Muggapakha Jataka. A prince pretends to be mute and incapable in order to avoid ascending to the throne, because he realizes that part of the royal remit was condemning miscreants to death. Various strategies are attempted to try to bait him out of his charade, but he keeps it up for 16 years. At last, when he is about to be executed himself, he opens his mouth and pleads for banishment by the executioner. He then becomes an ascetic, and eventually the whole of his family choose to join him. The metaphor of the Bodhisattva used when describing the perfection of renunciation was that of a prisoner who has broken out of jail and would never wish to return there. Examples of the way this perfection can be put into practice in everyday life might include minimizing the number of possessions which we have, so we don't have things to worry about, materially speaking. For monastics such as monks, novices, or nuns, renunciation would mean resisting the temptation to disrobe. For lay people, renunciation might mean keeping 8 precepts always or regularly. Lay people may still have a family life already, but they can still practice this perfection maybe by keeping 8 precepts on certain days of the week, such as Buddhist quarter moon days, or perhaps of the weekends. In Thailand, it's very common for devoted old people to keep 8 precepts permanently, especially after the last of their children have grown up and left home. The purpose of the perfection of renunciation is to overcome sensuality, because if our mind is still entangled with sensual things, then it cannot return to the center of the body very easily, and entanglement with material things would otherwise be a distraction on the pathway toward nirvana. The fourth of the 10 perfections is the perfection of wisdom, or Panya Parami. Perfection of wisdom is often the practical knowledge that arises as the byproduct of stepping up to take responsibility in tasks requiring great virtue. The metaphor the Bodhisattva used when pursuing this perfection was that of the alms gatherer. He would accept knowledge wherever it may come from. Even if it were from a slave or a beggar, he would accept it from them too, in order to become self-sufficient in knowledge. Cultivation of wisdom by the Bodhisattva is exemplified in the Mahosatha or Maha-Umaga Jataka, which tells the story of how a truly wise man outwits usurpers by tunneling under an army laying siege to his city. The sort of person who can have such wisdom is a person who is actually very humble, in contrast to what we normally associate with so-called smart people, who don't bother to listen to anybody else's advice. A truly wise person needs to be humble enough to learn and accept advice from anyone, no matter what their station in life. The commentary to the Samyutta Nikaya's Susima Sutta tells about an incident with a leading disciple of the Buddha called Sariputta, who is renowned for his wisdom. It concerns what these days I think would be called a wardrobe malfunction. Once, he put on his waistcloth a little bit squint, and some 7-year-old novice came up and pointed it out to him, saying, "Excuse me, sir, did you know that the corner of your waistcloth is hanging down?" Sariputta immediately paid respect to the novice for speaking up. Why? Because he accepted the knowledge from that novice as if that novice were his teacher, for seeing something he had overlooked himself. Examples of the way this perfection can be put into practice in everyday life are trying to find something to learn from in everybody and bolstering conscience by studying and meditating to understand properly the guidelines given by the Buddha for every situation, especially concerning the logic of karma. And in the slide, I've written the abbreviation for "What would the Buddha do?" Its purpose is to overcome the habits of ignorance or neglect, since blind spots in a Buddhist conscience could otherwise be a distraction on the pathway toward nirvana. The remainder of the perfections come in pairs. The fifth perfection, called perseverance, is paired up with the sixth perfection of patience. Concerning perseverance, you may already have heard the word virya, which sounds a bit like the word virile. The word normally makes us think of someone who's striving energetically to do any form of good deeds. So the fifth of the 10 perfections, the perfection of perseverance, or virya parami, normally means that you struggle to overcome in a very single-minded way anything which stands in the way of your completion of good deeds, that is. It means clearing obstacles out of your way without any sort of thought of compromise. The perfection of perseverance is the unconditional ability to keep trying relentlessly until the perfection in any task is achieved. The metaphor the Bodhisattva used when pursuing this perfection was of the sleeping lion that will train itself uncompromisingly to wake up in the reclining lion posture it has gone to sleep in. This perfection is exemplified in the Mahajanaka Jataka. In the lifetime described, in spite of being born to inherit the throne, a prince has to overcome banishment and shipwreck, solving many riddles in order to regain the throne. But having succeeded, he sees through the delusion of mundane success and instead becomes an ascetic. Examples of the way this perfection can be put into practice in everyday life are fighting back relentlessly against any obstacles to spiritual progress, constantly looking for ways to improve, and seeing the danger even in the smallest things. So, for example, if you have pain when you're meditating, you struggle on in spite of it. The purpose of this perfection of perseverance is to overcome the habits of fear and laziness in the face of obstacles, since fearing change for the better could otherwise be a distraction on the pathway toward nirvana. So now that we know the first 5 of the 10 perfections, let's take a break halfway for some meditation, which today is entitled The Kingdom of Light. So at this time, we settle ourselves down for 20 minutes of meditation. If you would like to find a comfortable sitting position for yourself now as you listen to my guidance. So if you'd like to settle yourself now for some meditation, and make sure you're comfortable enough to sit for a long time without having to move around too much. Close your eyes very gently, as softly as you can. And as usual, we slowly take a few good deep breaths to ourselves, and we follow the in-breath deeper into the body, down through the lungs, to the center of the body, letting the in-breath refresh ourselves on the inside. We take note of the point where the in-breath turns inside the body, because it's a point we will return to as a focus for our awareness. And on the out-breath, we release all the tensions or the discomforts from the inside out. And we relax the whole of our body, all the way from the top of our head, right the way down to the tips of our toes. We slowly relax every part of the body, until there's no single part of ourselves with any remaining stress or tension anymore. We release the tension and let it go, as if we are surrendering every last muscle into a soothing tide of relaxation. We turn our attention to relax the mind as well. It's equally important for both body and mind to be relaxed. It may take a few moments, but it's not that hard for us to achieve. We just need to be patient enough to allow both body and mind to relax thoroughly. And we allow the mind to wind down by resting the consciousness or the awareness within the space of the body, softly and continuously. So we learn to rest our mind within this space softly for a few moments. We always maintain relaxation throughout our time of meditation. We check in with the center of the body by taking a deep breath again. to remind ourselves of the location of this point. All we need to do is to return the mind to its natural place of balance at the center of the body. We treat ourselves to a few moments of quiet, touching gently with our awareness at the center of the body, slowly, without any hurry at all, remaining tranquil and still the whole of the time. The nature of existence is an endless journey through unknowing. It is a journey through obscurity that is the lot of all living beings. Our earth is illuminated by the bright light of the sun and the moon. Yet such light reveals only the outside world beyond our skin. But what about on the inside of our skin, so important for our self-understanding and a sense of meaning in life? Normally, the inner world should be illuminated by the light of the mind. But if we lack inner illumination, we will be unable to engage safely with the inner aspects of our existence. Inner light has been dismissed as a mere hallucination by some modern-day neurophysicists, but is not easily revealed. It lies beyond ordinary space-time and beyond the grasp of the natural mind. It is an inner experience that transcends the brain or the nervous system, entangled in worldly ideas and philosophical speculations. The part of the mind we're talking about shines out with its own clear light. When meditation is practiced successfully, it has the power to recover that inner light. So one good reason that we are gathering today to meditate together is in order to immerse ourselves in that inner light, so essential to meaning-making in our lives. Emotional struggles in our life can be unsettling without such inner light to help us see how we fit into the bigger picture. Although the nature of existence can be a mystery to us, but if we know how to initiate bright inner light, we can avail ourselves of a feeling of security and confidence as we make our way through life. The wisdom traditions of the East have always involved cultivating inner light as a strategy to make the best of our existence in this world, to pull our lives out of the emotional shadows. And to this end, many of the wisdom traditions of the East teach us how to cultivate inner light. And in this connection, the center of the body can be the source. This inner point is the source of the light where, by reaching inward with our awareness, we can generate light inside. So we allow the mind to reach inward toward the light source inside for a few moments, while always maintaining a sense of relaxation the whole of the time. It is a kind of inner awakening fueled by the inner light in the mind. At this level of description, the shape of the mind is spherical, a sphere that shines with an inner light, a round sphere that's self-illuminating. By resting the mind at this point, the source is illuminated by the bright inner light in the mind. Immerse yourself in the bright, silvery inner light as it shines forth its radiance. Allow the light or the inner feeling that you have brightness inside to continue on and on, with the mind shining forth its radiance. And now we have learned to initiate bright light by ourselves. We reach inwardly with the mind, reaching gently with our awareness toward the inner light shining in the mind at the center of the body. The inner light foretells the arising of peace in the mind, like the light before the dawn. The inner light replicates the real, spherical nature of the mind. So we continue to connect with the source of the inner light for a few moments more. For many people, the stream of thoughts in the mind is almost continuous, and it's hard to find a single break in the thoughts to give ourselves that sense of peace and quiet. In such a case, to open up a space between the thoughts in the mind, we make use of something called a mantra, which is basically a word that we repeat to ourselves silently, as if we hear the sound of it coming up from the center of our bright object. The traditional mantra for this meditation method is the words Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang. And we hear the sound of those words coming up as if like a silent music from the center of ourselves. From the center of the bright object over and over again, gently encouraging the mind to become free of thought, while at the same time linking our awareness more closely with this point in the center of the body. By meditation, we can ensure that brightness is always the color of our lives, by gaining an increasingly brilliant inner light in which to immerse ourselves. Life may be too short to procure all the pleasures we crave, because each instance of pleasure never lasts long enough for us. This is why people are constantly obsessed with seeking out happiness from the things around them. A much better place to seek enduring happiness and peace would be from the inside, and meditation is key to unlocking the happiness that has been so elusive in the outside world. Meditation can help us harvest the happiness from the inside. But we need to meditate for the right reasons. An effective motivation for meditation is not to think that we are developing the mind as an escape, to gain superpowers, clairvoyance, or divination. because all these motivations are incompatible with the purity of healthy progress in meditation. The desired goal of this meditation is, in general terms, to provide us with the opportunity to see life as it really is, to see beyond suffering and impermanence, while not becoming attached to an illusory ego. If we can come to know these truths, then, because of this understanding of these truths, we will be able to conduct ourselves in such a manner that the shadows of suffering in life will be minimized. Life cannot be truly bright unless meditation brings us to the center of the body and to the inner light. Especially when in the outside world each source of pleasure is so fleeting. But when inner light can be never-ending, the rule of transient pleasure in the outside world no longer applies. Since in this inner kingdom, light is as endless as it is unbounded. So the more you bring your awareness to abide in the kingdom of light, in the center of the body, the more bright light inside will permeate through, even to your complexion and the aura of your personal appearance. That's why if you meditate often, if your interior is ever bright, such brightness will shine through into external aspects of your life, until your life starts to mirror the light within. You will become unified with the body of bright light within yourself. So now that we've discovered inner light, we let the brightness from inside dispel the shadows of the outside world, drawing upon inner light to brighten the outside. Meditation will extend the light of compassion to connect the internal and the external spheres of our life. So we allow the mind to remain immersed in the soft inner brightness as continuously as we can, for as long as we can. Immerse yourself in soft light. Immerse yourself in bright light of such a shining inner light at the center of the body. We continue to make sure the physical body and the mind are truly relaxed. We immerse ourselves in the brightening glow of the inner light within the mind. Since after all your good efforts in meditation, you deserve to be first in line when it comes to attaining inner peace. The experience of inner light is an ecumenical experience shared by mystics and meditators alike from across different faith traditions. Light has been used as a privileged metaphor in the language of mysticism and experiential religions going back to the ancient Greeks and the wisdom traditions of the East. St. Augustine in his Confessions spoke of the light unchangeable. Whoever knows truth knows that light, and whoever knows that light knows eternity. Similarly, St. Teresa of Avila described her inner light, saying, "Even if I were to spend years and years imagining how to invent anything so beautiful, I could not do it, and I do not know even how I could try. For even in its whiteness and radiance alone, it exceeds anything you could imagine." It is not a radiance that dazzles, but a soft whiteness and an infused radiance. Even in experience at the end of life, many patients have witnessed a light without shadow, an all-suffusing light, which comes up as a central metaphor in near-death experiences. Light which enfolds the whole universe, so bright, but yet without hurting the eyes, brighter than anything you've encountered in your whole life, an enormously bright light that seems to cradle you, glorious and perfect, nurturing you, an extremely bright light, pure white or blue-white light, a living light that seems to communicate and acknowledge us. And with this light comes a feeling of absolute pure love, the warmest possible feeling, absolutely vivid and clear, like a crystallized light, beaming with a brightness in every direction, totally absorbing your consciousness, radiating from the very center of your consciousness out to the infinite expanses of the universe. And it's time now to share bright light to all the other beings with whom or with which we share our world and our existence. We allow bright light to expand as a sphere, to become bigger and wider, like the volume of light is expanding from a small sphere inside us, to become a bigger, a wider sphere, expanding endlessly. We let our inner light shine for all other beings in our world who share our existence. And since the color of our lives has now become the color of light, we immerse ourselves in the journey, in the nature of the existence, together with the brightness that we have created for ourselves. From here on in, we will allow bright light to continue to emanate bigger and brighter always, to share our happiness of the journey to others without exception, for a few more moments in silence. Anupa-vena, Sappathamma-nupa-vena, Sappasangha-nupa-vena, Sattha-soti, Bhavantu te. So if you'd like to come to the end of your meditation for today, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, then slowly try changing to a more comfortable position and then gently finish your practice. So to continue with our journey through the 10 perfections, We come now to the 6th of the 10 perfections, which is the perfection of patience, or Khanti Parami. As I said, perseverance comes paired with the 6th perfection of patience, and although perseverance and patience may on the face of it sound the same, but each requires a different approach to overcoming obstacles. Supposing your wife sometimes speaks to you rudely. If you use the approach of perseverance, then you might dump her without further thought. But this might not be appropriate because surely your wife would have many good aspects to her as well as occasional rudeness. It's only the way she speaks to you which is the problem, in which case what would be preferable is a more diplomatic approach, which we might call patience. Instead, you have to tolerate the problem until it comes to the appropriate time to mention it, and wait until she's in a good mood so that you can talk to her about this problem in a more amicable way. So this is an example of patience. It's not like perseverance, which would be the attitude of a bull in a china shop. It requires a little bit more diplomacy and tact. If a person cannot make progress immediately, they remain patient. They don't backslide, but they will hold their ground until they are able to make progress in the pursuit of good deeds. Patience as a perfection is the unconditional form of patience that you've learned about previously on 4 levels. Patience in the face of physical hardship, patience in the face of physical suffering, such as illness, patience in the face of conflict, and patience in the face of temptation. The metaphor the Bodhisattva used when pursuing this perfection was that of the earth, which does not so much as flinch whether pleasant or unpleasant things are poured onto it. This patience is exemplified in the Janda Kumara or Kandhala Jataka, where the Bodhisattva is a king who, with his family, must put up with the loss of wealth, position, and reputation. Examples of the way this perfection can be put into practice in everyday life are not losing one's temper or being elated by flattery. It means having the patience to teach and reason with subordinates, instead of ordering them about or threatening them. Its purpose is to overcome the habits of unsteadfastness of mind in the face of defilements and temptations, since such conflicts would otherwise be a distraction on the pathway towards nirvana. The 7th of the 10 perfections is truthfulness, or Satya Parami. Truthfulness is paired up with the perfection of resolution, which we will come to in just a minute. We are already familiar with truthfulness from things like the 4th precept. We all try to tell the truth, but this perfection refers not just to truth in the things that we say, but sincerity in everything that we do as well. So it means something more like being earnest or true to yourself. This pair of perfections is about setting targets for yourself, and it's said that an element of truthfulness is also knowing your own potential. You shouldn't make promises which you know you can't keep. If you only make promises which you know you can keep, then this is a very good way of preserving your sense of integrity. The metaphor the Bodhisattva used when pursuing this perfection was that of the morning star, which never shifts from its orbit, appearing each day in the sky in the same place. This perfection is exemplified in the Vitura or Vitura Bandita Jataka, which shows that knowledge is an important factor for morality, eliminating the ignorance and doubt that leads to unwholesome behavior. In that lifetime, the Bodhisattva had to risk his life in order to engage with wisdom and truth to overcome jealous royalty who would rather have his head. Examples of the way this perfection can be put into practice in everyday life are being realistic in setting goals and being earnest in everything said and done. The perfection of truthfulness is unconditional sincerity and honesty, especially in keeping one's word. It may mean never approaching a task with anything less than the best of one's ability. If we say we're going to come on time, then we make sure we're punctual. If we say we're going to finish something, then we finish it. If we can't keep a promise, then at least we tell that other person that we can't. So, you might be the sort of person who might carefully consider taking on a task before you commit to it. This is the sort of person who we would normally expect to be a truthful person, rather than the sort of person who says, "Oh yes, no problem," but never gets round to doing anything they've agreed. So it means that you must have an accurate idea about your potential if you commit to a target. For example, meditating for 2 hours a day. You need to be realistic enough so that you don't let yourself down. The purpose of this perfection is to avoid becoming the sort of person who love your ego more than they love truth, and to overcome the habits of changeableness and fickleness of the mind that would otherwise be a distraction on the pathway toward nirvana. Having described the perfection of truthfulness, the other half of the pair is the 8th of the 10 perfections, that of resolution, or adhitthana parami. Perfection of resolution means unconditional dedication to clear and thorough planning of the stages of a task, and following up until the results reach the agreed specification and schedule in every respect. The metaphor the Bodhisattva used when pursuing perfection was that of a mountain, unshakable by the winds from the four directions. The perfection of resolution is exemplified in the Nemi Raja Jataka. In that lifetime, the Bodhisattva is a king who, on the appearance of his first grey hair, renounces his kingdom to become an ascetic. Making a resolution isn't like making a prayer where you petition for help for some unseen deity. The power for success is attributed to the power of the good deeds that you have done in the past. You might make the resolution, "On this occasion, may the power of these good deeds bring me success in such and such." It has the effect of channeling or strengthening your determination to go on to achieve something as a result of your good deeds. And this is why it's said that for every good deed that you do, you should always make a resolution, at the very least, that the merit will help you break free of all defilements to become pure in body, speech, and mind. An example of the way this perfection can be put into practice in everyday life is not backsliding from goals. Resolution is also something you will have come across in the chanting book of our temple in the form of the daily resolve, which is basically making a strong wish or affirmation that all the good deeds which we've done that day will help us to attain enlightenment, to become pure, to be able to move ever forward on the path of perfection, to go on to be a Buddha, to go on to help everyone to become enlightened, and so forth. The purpose is to overcome the habits of downsizing goals, since not fulfilling goals would otherwise be a distraction on the pathway toward nirvana. This is especially important for someone who wants to go on to be a Buddha, because there are so many other choices which would fall short of attaining Buddhahood. For example, if the Buddha became lazy part of the way through his lifetimes as a Bodhisattva, maybe he would just settle to be a Pacceka Buddha, otherwise known as a silent Buddha, a sort of being that has the same level of enlightenment as a Buddha, but without the ability to teach other people. If he had lowered his sights further still, then he would just settle for being one of the leading disciples of a Buddha, or a regular arahant, or any of the lower paths and fruits of nirvana. So to keep up his goal, he needed this perfection of resolution. The penultimate of the 10 perfections is the perfection of loving kindness, or metta parami. Again, loving kindness is part of a pair, as it needs to be held in balance with equanimity. The perfection of loving kindness means the unconditional ability to show compassion and forgiveness to others wherever the opportunity arises, and is the origin of the idea that Buddhists should be able to behave like a loving parent, toward everyone in the world without any favoritism. Loving-kindness is exemplified in the Sama Jataka, where the Bodhisattva shows filial piety in taking care for his blind parents. The metaphor the Bodhisattva used when pursuing this perfection was that of the river waters that are soothing to all people, good or bad, who might go down into its waters to bathe. Examples of the way this perfection can be put into practice in everyday life are nurturing and expressing compassion and good wishes for all, not letting anger last overnight. The purpose of loving-kindness is to overcome any lack of empathy towards others, since vengefulness could otherwise be a distraction on the pathway towards nirvana. The Bodhisattva predicted that if he had to go out looking for all his disciples to teach, then it would delay his ability to spread wisdom in the world. Much more effective would be to make himself endearing, so that potential students would come looking for him. The final one of the 10 perfections is the perfection of equanimity, or Upekkha Parami. As the counterpart of loving-kindness, equanimity usually comes as part of a package of 4, that's known as the divine abidings, or Brahmavihara, which are seen as 4 different aspects of compassion we have already learned about before. When you come to equanimity, it's more like a mature form of compassion, where you are able to let go of issues where you know that you have already done your utmost to help, and that would be ineffective or unnecessary to intervene anymore. Just as when a parent sees their child has grown up to adulthood, maybe moved out or started their own family, they realize that their parental duties have now changed, and they don't need to fuss about the small details of their child's lives anymore. That being a good parent now means that they have to have the equanimity merely to be there for their child. If the child needs their help, then they know where to look for them. Equanimity, or level-headed justice, is the unconditional ability to see what is best for the common interest and sharing with others. The metaphor the Bodhisattva used when pursuing perfections, as with patience, was that of the earth, which does not so much as flinch whether pleasant or unpleasant things are poured on it. The perfection of equanimity is exemplified in the Narada or Mahanarada-kassapa Jataka, where a king is converted from a life of hedonism to accepting his moral duties through the advice of the Bodhisattva and the example of his own virtuous daughter. Examples of the way this perfection can be put into practice in everyday life are cultivating impartiality of mind, not interfering beyond one's remit, or conversely going out of your way to help with things for the common good. The purpose of equanimity is to overcome the habits of interfering needlessly in things that can be let go of, since a mind swayed by worldly vicissitudes or loka dhamma would otherwise be distracted from the pathway toward nirvana. Sometimes the 10 perfections have been expanded to 30 by multiplying the 10 perfections by 3 possible levels of unconditionality, which are defined by how much a Buddhist is prepared to stake in order to practice each one of the perfections. If a Buddhist is willing to sacrifice all their wealth and possessions to cultivate perfections, it is known as pursuit of perfection on the ordinary level. If a Buddhist is willing to sacrifice their health or intactness of body to cultivate perfections, it is known as pursuit of perfection on the higher level, or Upaparami. If a Buddhist is willing to put their life on the line to cultivate perfections, it is known as the pursuit of perfection on the ultimate level, or Paramatta Parami. Often it is not necessary to actually lay down one's life or risk life-changing injury to cultivate perfections on the higher or ultimate levels, although the number of times the Buddha-to-be made sacrifices on these levels was countless. More often, the practitioner needs to be of the state of mind where they are prepared to make the sacrifice. So, when we are talking about the Bodhisattva and what was necessary for him to go on to Buddhahood, it was not just over the course of a lifetime or two, but over the course of a very long career of perfections, to the point where we see him in the final 10 lifetimes, risking his life to pursue perfection. So we can now see that, for the Buddha himself, it wasn't just the final lifetime where he thought, oh, I'll renounce the palace and become an ascetic. It didn't just happen as a result of some overnight epiphany, but it happened on the basis of perfections which had been gradually accumulating for countless lifetimes, until the point that he reached a sort of terminal velocity, where his perfections reached the level which would support his attainment of Buddhahood. A person who has achieved personal salvation by the pursuit of perfections is called an arahant, which literally means one far from defilements. A person who has achieved salvation for the benefit of all living beings is called a Buddha, literally an awakened or joyous one. It is the individual choice of every person to what level they wish to pursue perfections. However, to pursue perfections to the level of a Buddha takes a lot longer than the perfections needed to become an arahant. Pursuing perfection to this level does involve an almost inconceivably long time span and is often described in 3 phases. The first phase is known as the closeted pursuit of perfection, where the Bodhisattva pursues perfection in secret, because he is still relying on trial and error. It takes 7 Asankaya Mahakalpas, where 1 Mahakalpa is a unit of time equal to the time taken for 1 world cycle, and 1 Asankaya is a quantity equal to the number of raindrops falling continuously across the universe in the space of 3 years. At the beginning of a career of pursuing perfections, lacking certainty, making mistakes, but as his experience increased, the number of errors would decrease and the certainty of knowledge in the pursuit of perfections would increase, leading him to the second phase of the pursuit of perfections, where the Bodhisattva has, in inverted commas, come out as a pursuer of perfection, where they not only admit to others what they are doing, but also encourage others to follow them, and this takes 9 Asankaya Mahakalpas. The third phase of pursuit of perfection is the phase where the Bodhisattva has already received prophecy of success in reaching Buddhahood from the mouth of a previous Buddha. Before the prophecy, they are said to be an uncertain or aniyata Bodhisattva, but having received the prophecy, they are then known as an assured or niyata Bodhisattva. This final phase takes 4 Asankaya Mahakalpas and 100,000 Mahakalpas. In the first 2 phases of the pursuit of perfection, success is not assured. However, after prophecy, success is assured within the appointed timescale. The timescales quoted for a Bodhisattva's practice to cultivate towards enlightenment as a Buddha are based on the quickest route, namely for an intellectual or Panyadika Buddha. For a devotional or Saddhadika Buddha, however, it takes about twice as long, and for an energetic or Viryadika Buddha, about 4 times as long. For personal enlightenment as an Arahant, it takes only 100,000 Mahakalpas, whereas the shortest route to Buddhahood is 20 Asankaya Mahakalpas and 100,000 Mahakalpas. Our Buddha Gautama of the present era is one example of a Buddha who has completed this path of perfections, illustrating the magnitude of difficulty in becoming a Buddha, and perhaps explaining why Buddhists hold the Buddha in such high esteem and admiration. The pursuit of perfection is recognized as essential in both Theravada and Mahayana traditions of Buddhism. In the Theravada, 10 perfections are elaborated as we have seen today. In the Mahayana, however, only 6 are mentioned by name. Any discrepancy between the two traditions can be explained by saying that the perfection of meditation, or jhana parami, of the Mahayana Buddhism includes the Theravada perfections of renunciation, truthfulness, resolution, loving-kindness, and equanimity. So this session has explained the Buddhist answer to the ultimate question of what is the purpose in life, in terms of pursuing perfections to their ultimate conclusion of breaking free from the cycle of existence, by becoming an arahant or setting one's sights higher still on the compassionate ideal of the Bodhisattva of helping all living beings to become enlightened before entering nirvana oneself. In the final session of this series next time, we will come full circle by returning to the concept of the triple gem and its different possible levels of meaning. So now we come to time for questions, and today's question comes from Kathleen of Glendora, California, and here comes the question. Last session, you talked about spontaneous arising where no birth is necessary. Can you go into more detail about this? Can a divine being or an interdimensional being take on a body through spontaneous arising? How does that work? How long would such a body live or last? Hi Kathleen, and thank you for your question. I'm not sure if you watched my presentation on the 31 realms. There are some answers there about how such bodies live or last. In any case, you will see from that presentation that only animals and humans have physical bodies. I know you have a particular interest in extraterrestrial life, and I am not an expert in this. But if you are looking for parallels with what you have learned about interdimensional beings, you might start by looking at the other 3 worlds of the human beings as one place overlapping with human beings from beyond our rose-apple continent. As for the spontaneous arising of beings which have no physical body, I did mention that 29 of the 31 realms use this form of arising with no birth required. It means arising in adult form without the need for parents to procreate. Buddhists would agree that this is the mode of birth for divine beings. As for different dimensions, Buddhism has a provision for multiple universes, and the likelihood that beings get born from one universe into another if their karma requires a rebirth into a realm that is not available in that universe where they are currently residing at the time of death. For example, if there is no heaven available in a certain universe when a being has done a lot of good deeds, then when they die, they would have to go to heaven in a parallel universe. Anyway, make sure you've seen my presentation on the 31 realms first, and I would be happy to continue the conversation outside hours. Before today, let me finish up with a quick mention about temple support and a news update about the availability of meditation teaching in English. For those of you who like to visit the temple in Azusa to bring offerings, please be informed that, as it would seem that we have still not arrived at the post-pandemic new normal, despite the dismantling of the tier system in California, at our temple, we are still using the offering site in the parking lot next to the main temple building between 10 and 11 a.m. each day. If you have trouble with the passcode on the gate or wish to visit at a different time, please call Jenny on 562-716-2961. You can bring offerings of food each day between 10 and 10:45 a.m. and most recently each day, there'll be a short ceremony for requesting 5 precepts, offering the midday meal, and receiving a blessing between 10:45 and 11:15 a.m. For those unable to visit in person, all the other ways of accepting money transfers to DIMC are still available, whether it be mailing checks, bank transfer, Zelle, or Venmo. Needless to say, the whole temple would like to rejoice in the merits of all continuing to take the opportunity to support the temple in this way. For all the reasons mentioned before, at the temple there are still no face-to-face teaching sessions for the interim. You can, however, continue to access Dhamma teachings in English through several convenient channels. For aficionados of Zoom meetings, you can access the Inner Peace channel content by joining the Zoom channel ID 970-1192-2337 with the meeting passcode 072. And as you will see from the program schedule on the slide, content is available for most of the day now, 7 days a week, and brings together all the usual programming from our temple with the English and Spanish content from various other branches across the US. The times shown on this slide are for the West Coast. For content local to Azusa, you can continue to follow teachings at the YouTube channel called Peace Point Meditation or the Facebook page of Peace Point Meditation. For those of you particularly interested in my talks, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel which I have set up in my own name. According to the current Peace Point schedule, every Sunday morning you have got me with live material and archived material on alternating Sundays. Venerable Sopon appears every Thursday evening. The Monday and Friday Peace Silence sessions from Peace Point have been postponed for the interim, owing to even more teaching monks being away in Thailand. Families listening in may be interested in a special show for children in English, known as Shining Stars, that goes out between 6 and 6:30 p.m. every Monday evening, with bedtime stories and meditation short enough to keep the attention of younger listeners. Outside of the live streams and on-demand programming, you can also download the Mind Gem app for free, allowing you to listen to meditation and Dhamma talks in English on your cell phone, even when you are offline. It also now has push notifications to keep you up to date with upcoming activities on the Inner Peace channel. So this session we've looked at the topic of pursuing perfections. For my next live session online with you, which will, fingers crossed, be a week on Sunday morning, we'll be moving on to look at something along the lines of the Triple Gem. For good measure, I would like to remind viewers you can email your questions about meditation or what you've heard in the lecture to the email address that you can see spelled out in the slide, and I will do my best to answer these on my next session. In the meantime, try to stay healthy, avoid recklessness or complacency in the face of the virus, maintain a positive mood, speak only positive words, forgive others, extend good wishes to others, and meditate daily. Hopefully, as a result of today's session, you will now realize the long-term view of cultivating perfection sequentially across lifetimes and the sacrifices made by the Buddha to reach his final lifetime of enlightenment. So today, this is me, Phra Nicholas Thanissaro, signing off for this session. So long, folks, and stay safe.